Okay, hello, welcome to video number 2, designing guitars using Inkscape. I wanted to go over a few things first before I start this. So I was going over everything pretty fast last time. Also, you can see the arrow here moving. I didn't have that turned on in my screen capture software, so I have it turned on now so you can very easily see, like if I'm up here turning, snapping on or off. I'm also going to try to verbalize what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I tried to find a way to kind of zoom in on what I was doing with the editing software or whatever, but it's not my normal field of expertise. But anyways, so here we're at a new project, and what I do is go up here to File, Document Properties. First, to start out, just change everything to inches. And actually, I forget to do this a lot of the time. And there, you just change the dimensions. So what I do is width of 72 and height of 48 for this application, because then it's like you have a big workbench, 4 foot by 6 foot workbench here. So we're working in full scale. First thing we're gonna do here is kind of make like a rough full-size drawing of an existing guitar. So I'm going to go into Chrome. I'm going to search for, this is a guitar that I have, Washburn Maverick. And that is a guitar that I own. So it would be good to kind of compare what we're designing to something that I already have. And I don't know how much we're going to change it just for this tutorial, but under Tools, for Google image search, you kind of want as big as you can get. So if you can, look for a large image, and you want to find one that is full scale or full length, so the whole thing, and kind of dead on without, some of these are at an angle. So I'm scrolling here. This is what you want, you want it to be a decent resolution, you want full length, and you want more or less like a neutral background, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tracing it. So like, a brown wall, this would get lost in there, a dark background, this would get lost in there. Might be a problem, but they have this strap on there, but whatever, we'll make that work. So okay, I'm going to take that. Now when you're in the browser, you can right click and just copy image. You don't have to actually download it. And then when you're in Inkscape, you go to paste. And see, now we're in outline mode. So it just shows that. This is a good reason to use. This is when you do want to be in normal mode. So I'm going to go up into View, Display Mode, Normal. And now we're here. So okay, before we trace the image, we want to get this full scale. That's our objective. So the way to do that in Inkscape is I'm going to make a rectangle here, and you have a known dimension in this image, and that's the scale length. You look up which guitar this is, and you'll see that it's and I can measure it on the one that I have. It's 24 3/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, I'll just do it roughly first. I'm going to draw a rectangle from the edge of the nut to the 24th fret. I'm going to turn snapping off up here, and we want to have like fine control over this line. We're going to drag the height of this down to, you can just see, it's kind of blurry, but that's okay for this. That's why you want the best image you can. Right here is where the nut meets the fretboard. So we're going to drag that right there, and we're going to go down here. And another little trick you can do is, if you want to go, I'm going to click on this, I'm going to go down here to where it says fill, and I'm going to click on that. There's this alpha channel here. That's the opacity. So see, I can make that more transparent so you can see what's underneath. you'd have to remember to turn that off. Here's the 12th fret, and I'm going to go as much as I can, as accurately as I can, get it in the middle of that fret, because that would be representative of half of the scale length. So I have a key on my keyboard for bringing up the calculator, and even though I could do this in my head, I try not to. 24.75 divided by 2, 12.375. So we're going to remember that, and here's the trick. We know that we want this square to be 12.375 because that's the length between the nut and the 12th fret that it's supposed to be. So what we're going to do is, first of all, you go to set clip. You got both of these selected, set clip, and now we're only looking at this part. This image ends where the 12th fret is. It ends up here where the nut is. So now we can go up here to the top and we can define dimensions, precise dimensions. I'm going to put that little padlock icon, turn that on so that it constrains the aspect ratio. And we want to change the height. 12.375. There. Now, this image is full scale, as close as we can get it. And now we go down here, I right-clicked on it, release clip, and now we have an image of this guitar that is at full scale. And now we can, when we go to trace it, so trace bitmap after you right-click is right here, and get this traced. I'm using the brightness cutoff detection mode. That's why you want like a neutral background. You can see if you go too far in one direction, the object that you're trying to keep goes away. Go too far in the other direction, and it just becomes all black. So you want somewhere right in the middle. And unfortunately, the couch is part of that. So I'm going to try to get rid of as much detail there. You're starting to see the edges darken. So I'm going to go back a little bit. Usually it ends up being right in the middle, and then you hit apply. So you'll see the image got darker. What that actually is an object that was created from the image. It's not an image. We can go into up here, display mode, outline, and you can see that these are lines that are defined by the nodes, so as opposed to pixels, which is why this image isn't coming up anymore, because there's none of that information here. So just, try to drill that in about vectors. People get confused about what vector is. That's what it is. So now we're only interested in the headstock outline and the body outline. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, up on the toolbox, edit paths by nodes. I've got that tool selected, and I'm just going to grab as many nodes as I can and just get rid of them. Everything except for the outline that you want to keep. So here's some information about the frets. We don't want any of that. There's going to be all kinds of crazy handles coming up, and you want to find the node that is responsible for those and just get rid of them. Zoom in to get a little bit more detail, and so you can select wider areas using the shift key to go back and forth, control key to go in and out with the scroll wheel. I'm going to keep repeating some of that stuff because I went through it pretty fast. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm just going to get some of this done and come back. Okay, so I got rid of a lot of that stuff. There's more to get rid of. So I'm going to show you, like, when you have problems with trying to find the right image and everything. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw this off to the side, and I actually copied a different image. I'll show you. It's in Chrome. So I went copy image to this other one, which is just the body. I didn't want to use this to set the scale because the headstock is missing. You don't have the nut up there, so you don't have the reference as far as like what the dimensions are supposed to be. But we have that already. So we're going to make this one a little bit more complicated. Drag that there. We just want to get an easier shape so I'm not sitting here and cutting nodes for hours and redrawing curves and stuff like that. So I'm going to take this, and this will be a little bit better example of what trace bitmap can do. Over here, we're going to drag that, and here you can see we're just getting, you can see right here there's a little shadow. We can just barely get rid of that. Just barely. So I'm going to say that's good. And hit apply. Now we've got an object drawn on top of this according to those parameters. I'll go back into outline mode here, display mode, outline, and I'm going to do the same thing I did to the other one. I'm going to get rid of a lot of this information inside here. Another thing to point out about vectors, just while I have this stuff here, because this is it's kind of obvious to me what's going on here when I look at this outline, but it looks like a bunch of different objects. These are actually, they are different, they're not different objects, but they're different. They are, you can see they're not connected, but they are joined. They are joined, they're one path. So if I wanted these circles to be separate from this, like you can see when I click on them, it's all, when I click on this, these curves come up too because they're joined together. But you can go up here, path, break apart if you want to, or if you want things in one path, you can combine them. And what happens when you're not in outline mode, you can tell that it's one path because in normal, this part is cut out of the bigger one. So you have one shape defining the outline, and then all of these other things inside will define like a gap. And if I wanted to move this, this is all just nitpicky vector stuff or whatever. It'll kind of show like a difference or whatever. So it can get pretty squirrely here with different paths being a part of one another. So the object to what I'm trying to accomplish here is really just to get rid of anything that might complicate this shape, because you see what's going on now. There's all these paths inside of here that are kind of going crazy, and I'm getting rid of those so that it becomes just one object with one outline that is filled, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish here. So now here we have, and let's go into normal mode and see what we have. One big object with some weirdness on it. Now what I'm going to do is compare this to this one. So I'm going to make this a different color. I'm going to put it on top, and I'm just going to stretch it. I'm going to hold the control key down to constrain the proportions. Now see this shadow here that we couldn't get rid of? This doesn't have it. So we're going to try to choose what to keep of the first image, and then what we need to try to get from the second attempt here. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to compare this to what we have over here. So we'll go back and do that transparency thing over here. And you can always, when you're using a tool, it's going to show up on the right here, and you can slide that out of the way. The tools that you use are going to show up here, and like me, we're not tracing bitmaps anymore, I don't think, so I'm going to X that out. Fill and stroke is up here, so I don't need to go up here and grab it every time. I can just leave it over here and put it away, and next time I open this up, the things that I use the most often will still be there. So here we can compare the new shape to what it's supposed to be, and there's some differences because of the camera angle and all that, but we're going to try to get it close. So I think that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to keep this here as a reference and drag this over it and try to get this back where I traced it from. back to the same spot where it was to begin with. And that's pretty much there. So now we have a decision to make. What do we want to get rid of and what do we want to keep? So I know that, and maybe just to illustrate this, I'll just kind of start doing it. I am going to make a new square, make one there. I'm going to take a circle, put that right there, not touching this shape here, just the background, because we're choosing what to delete from the background. So, and then to illustrate this, I'll make these, I'll make them one path, combine. Now it's one path. And that's what you need to do if you're going to delete multiple shapes from one shape. So what I want to do is all these orange things, those are going to take away from the image underneath it. You can see they're all selected, and then Control minus. Okay, now you can see that stuff. There used to be information there and now it's gone. So we are going to continue to do that to all of the stuff that we don't need from the black image. So like this curve here, I'm happy with that. I want to keep that. But this stuff down here, I want to get rid of that. That means we can get rid of some of the stuff from this orange object. So I'm going to delete these points because we don't need them. All the information that we need for this area is part of the black object. We only need up to about this point, so we'll just kind of dial this back, and then we can get rid of this. So our the orange object that we created has that shadow on it that wouldn't go away. So we want to preserve the curve from the black object and not use any of this information from the orange one. Deleting all those, and any part of this curve where we're going to use the black one instead of the orange one is going to get deleted, and we can bring in these handles just to make it more obvious what we're doing. Now we do want this curve, so let's try to make that blend in where it should be blending in. It should meet that one. We're going to go in here and just kind of make this as much of a round curve as possible for now. So we are keeping the orange here, keeping the orange all the way down here probably, might as well, and then all the way over here. This is going to be a knockout that I'm going to use to get rid of information from this guitar. I just drew a big square here. I'm going to make that kind of red. I'm going to use the page down keys to get right under this, and I'm going to make this green so that it stands out a little bit more. Okay, so what I'm going to do, my objective here is to try to get all of this stuff from the black image. I want that to go away. So I'm going to use this shape here, and it's an object now, so I'm going to convert it to a path so that I can grab this node and make sure that I'm not going to be affecting the black shape. So, okay, here's another thing about nodes. I'm going to move that right there. I'm going to double click on this line here, and it creates another one for me. I'm going to double click on this line here, and it's going to give me another one. So you have to think in layers and think in multiple dimensions, I guess, to assess like where you want this. And I don't know, I'm just gonna go for it here, and you'll maybe see what is going on here, and it'll be more clear later because we're gonna do more of this. I am trying to delete stuff that would define this curve because we're using the green object to define that curve. So here we have that big red irregular shape, and I can see a little bit of black peeking out where we wouldn't want it, so I'm going to grab the node tool again and drag this up to cover it. Alright, now whatever is underneath that red is going to go away. We know it's on top of the black. We're going to select the black and select the red, Control minus, makes that go away. Now you can see where the black is, you can see where the green is. Let's get rid of this. We have our sort of Frankenstein trace. And if we take those two together, Control plus, and now we have basically the right looking thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to Control V right there in case we screw this up and we need to go back. There's all this noise on the edges, so I'm going to see about selecting this, go to Path, go to Simplify, and see a lot of those curves went away. See what happened down here? There was a strap button. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to get rid of the strap button. Right there. I'm going to dial this in a little bit more. So I'm going to do the same thing. Select it, and it's Control L to simplify. And you can see without that strap button, the simplify algorithm or whatever it is, it knew what to do a little bit better. Some of these are supposed to be, you can see how that's bent. So I'm going to go up here and just kind of clean that up by making that smooth. And sometimes, yeah, you have to grab it. There's some quirks to some of this stuff. So I guess you have to select it, make it smooth, and then grab it to actually like seal the deal. It's a good sign when you have a few nodes only right where you need them, and not a bunch of stuff. Like if you look up here, this is crazy. In fact, what happened to this headstock? We're not going to keep it. So we're working on the body right now. We're going to get rid of all this stuff. And we have this, our first body shape. I'm going into display mode and outline. And that is what it looks like. Another trick that you don't want to forget is going up here and hitting save. After all of that, there is maybe arguably an easier way to do this. So what I showed you with making a trace of this has a lot of cleanup, and you might have to like piece in stuff like I showed you. And of course, this is not a couch. I just realized in editing this was a guitar case, but it kind of looks like a couch. Anyways, trying to not make these videos too long. You have the Bezier tool. You can, if you want, I think this is more to think about myself, but you can totally do it this way. Just drag your handles as you draw, and then you can clean it up later. And of course, sometimes I will start with a sketch, and then I'll totally do it this way instead of, but what I was going to say was that the way I showed before, where you are copying something and trying to find the right pieces of different kinds of traces to like put together, that's useful stuff to know. Even if you are going to do this and you want to, like, maybe you like one side of the guitar better than the other, and you want to maybe copy an existing design and try something different with the part that you don't like. So there's other reasons to use the other method besides this one. So there's an option to do that, and of course I'm going to get rid of the stroke here. You don't know exactly what these handles are doing as you're drawing them, so there's a lot of cleanup like this. There's some ways where I like the cleanup of removing nodes and then doing a simplify rather than the cleanup of trying to find weird curves I don't like. And also, when I draw something by hand, it just psychologically it just looks weird. But that's the other thing I wanted to show before I end this one, is that you can do it this way too. And then use the other method of piecing things together to further refine what you're trying to do. Okay, so I recorded this video and the next one thinking it was going to be one video, but I cut it in half. So I am here to end this one, and the next one will be pretty much dedicated to not tracing, but copying a piece of hardware using some of the Inkscape tools. So we'll see you then.